of the paper that I took on last Thursday from The Age. It's unique offenders by country of birth, April 2017 to March 2018. Number of alleged unique offenders. Australia topped the list by birth of 58,700. Then they break it down to offenders per 1,000 people. Australia was 15. New Zealanders were 20, so a third higher per head of population rate for Kiwis. The Afghanis and the Iranians were approximately the same rate as the New Zealanders, but Sudan and South Sudan, per 1,000 head of population, 103. So roughly 7 times the rate of offending from Australians for the Sudanese and the South Sudanese.
Yeah, I mean, it reflects
and some people say there isn't a crime problem with the Africans.
I think it's a strange thing to say. I think given those statistics and given what the ABC has said, they've done their own analysis, which they published something online, and a lot of their supporters sort of went after them for saying, why would you put this stuff out? You know, why would you do this? But I don't think that there's any problem in telling the truth.
Absolutely. And, mate, Nigel Farage was in town the other night. Unfortunately, I've been in turmoil lately and didn't realise that he was going to be in town, otherwise I would have tried to get a ticket. But there was a crowd of people demonstrating there, and I read whether the police were considering charging the organisers for the cost of providing security for law-abiding people to show up and see these things. What do you make of this?
Well, the Victoria Police in particular are the worst offenders when it comes to this sort of thing. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos, when he was here early in the year, was hit with a significant fine. Warren Southern and Stephen Molyneux came and toured together. They were hit with a $68,000 fine, I think.
Which they're not paying, as I understand it.
No, and I mean, good on them for saying we're not going to pay. I mean, you're essentially asking for them to pay the police for the job
to do their job
to be doing.
That's right.
This is the job that they are charged with
That's
doing.
right.
And so I think that it's to me it seems like a really clear case of an imposition on freedom of speech.
Absolutely.
If you're going to say there's going to be a cost of tens of thousands of dollars in order for you to come and speak and do a tour and hold a peaceful event,
Absolutely.
the people who are causing the problems aren't the people who are attending these events. The people who are causing the problems are the protesters outside. So if you're going to fine anyone, I mean, this is essentially what this is, right?
That's right.
They're saying you've got to pay for the service.
Absolutely.
But the service is being provided to the community at large.
Yes.
So
and they're there at the event for the sole purpose of defending law-abiding people from people who are taking the law into their own hands and saying, no, we don't want this person here.
Yeah, exactly right.
I went and saw Hurt Wilders about 3 years ago, I guess it was. And, there was great secrecy about where the event was going to be. It was supposed to be in the city to begin with, and it finished up out at Craigieburn or somewhere. And the news leaked, and there were demonstrators outside there. And I think some guy got knocked over, actually, trying to enter the place. I just find it an absolute disgrace. I listened to Hurt Wilders for 45 minutes. The only controversial thing he said, as far as I was concerned, was he made reference to Muhammad being a pedophile. And I thought, well, I don't think it's really appropriate to apply 2017 standards to what a guy did 1,400 years ago. But that was about as controversial as it got for me. And yet, this is beyond the pale. You can't have people coming over here and saying things like this.
I think the environment that we live in now, where this idea that you actually engage with someone constructively and have a conversation and try and discuss your differences, that sort of thing is out the window now, particularly for the left. I just think that they have decided that the legitimate way to operate in these things is to shout people down, to shut down events.
The heckler's veto.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And now the heckler's veto, of course, is being amplified by organisations, by organs of the state, like Victoria Police. I think that's a disgrace.
Were you intrigued at the Matthew Guy became the big news because of the $3.5 million settlement to shut down a lawsuit? and now Daniel Andrews and his gang are on the hook for releasing private.
What a mess!
What a mess!
I don't know if Daniel Andrews and the team had actually read the 80,000 pages of documentation they released, but these are documents that were tabled in Victorian Parliament.
That's right,
and that anyone now can read on Hansard. And unfortunately for this young mother, very private details. Her level of income, health details, her own.
Now, this is not the mother of Thor you're talking about here.
I just think it's such a shame that in his craven pursuit of power, Daniel Andrews has caused some pretty significant private details to be released onto the public record.
Mate, speaking of the public record, does the name John Stevens ring any bells for you?
I think so.
He was a former producer of ABC TV children's programs back in the 80s, and pleaded guilty to indecent assault of a 12-year-old boy, I think it was, back in the 80s, in Gosford Court. I think it was last year, or it might have been late 2016. And the ABC has kind of avoided making too much of a deal about the fact that one of their former staff members was pleaded guilty to an indecently assaulting a young boy, whilst they're all over George Pell and all the rest of it. Which, and I understand there's newsworthy aspects of the church, but I also understand that there are pending court matters relating to a case called R versus JS in the Downing Centre Court in Sydney, coming up in the next few weeks.
Right. Okay.
Now, it's intriguing because last year I used to see reports of R versus John Stevens, and now what I'm seeing, not right now, but in the recent past, is R versus JS. If you have a chance to ask any of the ABC folks with whom you deal, if they've ever heard of John Stevens, a former ABC producer of TV, of children's TV shows, ask them if they know anything about the current court matters.
All right, well, I'm about to go in now.
Good on you, mate. Okay, yeah. See ya. And say hello to John Roskin for Bill Thompson.